Baik, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan selamat pagi. Apa khabar murid-murid? Jadi, nama cikgu Abdul Haqeem bin Akhiani dan cikgu ingin mengajar topik Physics Form 5 KSSM baru iaitu 2021. So today we gonna learn our first topic, which is Force and Motion 2. We continue with first subtopic, which is resultant force. Alright. So in this topic, we're gonna learn three things or three objectives, which is one, define resultant force, and then determine resultant force, and the third one is resultant force on an object in various state of motion. Alright. So let's go. Okay, what is force? Okay, so force is simply a push or a pull, iaitu tolak ataupun tarik. This one we already learned in Form 1 Science. We learn about force, and then force is always exerted by an object and acts on an object. So this one also we learn in Form 1, which is the effect of force. So we can change the shape of object. We also can change the speed of an object if we apply force. And then the third one is force occurs in pairs and can be either in balance or unbalanced. This one, if an object exerted by different magnitude of force or different direction of force, they will occur balanced or unbalanced force, which is formed as resultant force. Okay, in this situation, we can see two participants is playing tug and war. Alright, so this one we can see the flag over here is stay at the center of the line. So we can see that both participants has same distance. Alright, so in this situation, if both participants give same magnitude of force, which the force exerted by participant A is equal to participant B, alright, so the direction are applied on a stationary object, the object remain at rest. Okay, so we can see the flag is remain at rest or stationary. So what will be happen to the resultant force? Okay, we can say, for example, participant A will exert as much as 40 Newton, and it is equal with participant B, which is 40 Newton also. So resultant force is 0 because both participants apply same force on an opposite direction. So that's why we can say the flag over here is remain at rest because the resultant force is 0. Alright, for the situation 2, we can say that participant B give a larger force compared to participant A. When two opposing forces have different magnitudes, the object will move in the direction of larger force. So that's why we can see over here the flag is moving towards participant B, and is moving away from participant A. Alright, this is because I put an example over here. The participant B exerted force as much as 90 Newton, which is larger than participant A, 40 Newton. So resultant force has magnitude and direction to the right because participant B has larger force than participant A. So this one we can see any object that exerted with larger force will move towards the direction of the force. Okay. So over here, how can we know the resultant force? Is it 90 or other magnitude? Alright, macam mana kita boleh confirmkan adakah force yang dibawa kepada participant B, resultant force dia adakah total dia 90 ataupun total dia bernilai yang lain. Sebab resultant force kita bukan mengikut force yang asal participant tersebut beri. Okey, so macam mana kita nak tahu? Kita akan bergerak kepada learning objective yang kedua, iaitu determine resultant force. Alright, so before that kita tengok apakah definisi resultant force. Dari segi dua situasi yang kita dah lihat tadi. Situasi yang pertama force yang balance, situasi yang kedua force dia unbalance. So dari segi dua situasi tersebut kita boleh conclude resultant force is the single force that represents the vector sum of two or more force acting on an object. So dekat sini kita dapat fahamkan bahawa jika sesuatu objek dikenakan dua force ataupun lebih daripada dua force, dan force tersebut akan dicampur ataupun ditambah menjadi satu single force yang membawa objek tersebut ke arah daya yang lebih besar. Okay. So kita pergi ke learning topik yang kedua, iaitu determine resultant force. So for situation 1, we have two forces acting on an object in the same direction. So we can say here, there is a ball that moving to the right with two forces with different magnitude. The first one is 8 Newton and the second one is 6 Newton. So what is the resultant force exerted by the ball? So the magnitude of resultant force is equal to the sum of two forces. So the direction of resultant force is the same as the direction of two forces because both forces are moving to the right. So the resultant force is also moving to the right with the sum of two forces. Okay, assume that the force to the right is positive. So magnitude of the resultant force is 6 Newton plus 8 Newton. So the total resultant force is 14 Newton. So the direction of the resultant force is to the right. How we gonna write the answer for the resultant force in the full answer? So we're gonna write 14 Newton to the right. So this one is the magnitude of resultant force and this one is the direction of resultant force. Okay. For situation 2, we have two forces acting on an object in the opposite direction. This one is different from the situation 1. Situation 1, both forces are moving in the same direction, but for the situation, both forces are moving with different direction. So this one is moving to the right, this one is moving to the left. Okay, so both forces have different magnitude. How resultant force is exerted? Which direction the ball will go? Okay, we can see magnitude of resultant force is obtained from vector sum of two forces. Direction of resultant force in the direction of force with the larger magnitude. So from the diagram we can conclude the ball will move to the left because the left one have larger force compared to the right force, which is 8 Newton and the right one is 6 Newton. So assume that the force to the right is positive and we write the magnitude of resultant force is negative 8 plus 6. Why we write as -8? Because we assume the right direction is positive, but the left direction is negative. So that's why we use negative in the magnitude. Right, so -8 plus 6, the resultant force is -2 Newton. Okay, so magnitude of resultant force is 2 Newton. Okay, but why I'm not using negative for the resultant force? This is because the negative sign is the sign for negative direction or opposite direction. So that one is used for calculation only, as we put the sign as opposite direction. Okay, but in answer, the magnitude we use as positive 2 Newton, right? Because it show only the magnitude, but the direction is to the left. So the answer for resultant force is 2 Newton to the left. Or we can also write without writing the direction of the force, which is to the left, but we substitute with the sign of negative, because the sign negative is shown as the direction of opposite. Alright. Okay, for situation 3, there are two forces acting on an object perpendicular to each other. So for perpendicular direction, we know that they will give 90 degree at angle. So for this ball, there are two forces exerted on it, which is perpendicular to each other. This one is 6 Newton and this one 8 Newton. So how are we going to find the resultant force? Okay. First one, you need to complete the diagram and draw the diagonal of the rectangle which representing the resultant force. Okay. So first one, you need to draw the diagram to complete the rectangular. Okay, the dotted one, and then you draw the diagonal which is representing the resultant force. So after you draw this one, you can see there are two shape of triangle. Okay, so you transfer the 6 Newton over here because the direction is same. Alright, so you can use Pythagoras theorem to find the resultant force. Alright, so there are two force here. We can substitute in Pythagoras theorem formula. Okay, the a squared is represent 6 Newton, and then b squared represent 8 Newton, and then you square root the 100, you can get 10 Newton. Alright, so the resultant force here is 10 Newton. So this is how you find resultant force on objects that are exerted by two different forces which is perpendicular to each other. Alright. After that, you also can find the angle for the new angle this here. How you gonna find the angle? The angle between the diagonal and one of the side of the rectangle can be calculated using tangent theta, sine theta, and cosine theta. So O is the opposite to the angle, which is 6 Newton. A is the adjacent to the angle, is 8 Newton, and then H is the hypotenuse, which is the resultant force, the diagonal, which is 10 Newton. So I'm using tangent theta. So substitute O, which is 6 Newton, and then A is 8 Newton. and then you can get the new angle, which is 36.9 degree. Okay, so this is how you find the resultant force in objects that are exerted by two forces which is perpendicular to each other. Okay, so we're gonna move to the situation 4. How we're gonna find resultant force when two forces acting on an object in direction that are not perpendicular to each other. So this one is the different to situation 3. In situation 3, the force is perpendicular to each other, but in situation 4, the force on an object in the direction that are not perpendicular to each other. Okay, so how are we gonna find the resultant force? And then we see over here there are two direction force, which is 60 Newton and 80 Newton at angle 50. Okay, this one we call it triangle of force method, which is we use scale drawing. So we need to find a scale for the drawing. So the first step, choose a suitable scale to determine the magnitude. So this one I choose scale as 1 cm is equal to 10 Newton. Alright, because we're gonna need a protractor and a ruler to draw the diagram. Okay, so second step is draw the first force and measure the initial angle using protractor before drawing the second force. So over here, after I find the scale, which is 1 centimeter is equal to 10 Newton, I draw a new line according to the force that have been given. So the first line of force is 80 Newton, so I drew in 8 cm, okay, using my ruler. And then after drawing the first line of force, you need to draw a second line of force, which is 6 cm, which is followed by the scale over here. Alright, so before you draw the second line of force, you need to state the angle of 50 over here, which is same angle according to the question that have been given. Okay, using protractor, you measure 50 degrees from the 0, and then after you mark the 50 degree, and then you draw the second line of force, because you need to follow 50 degree according to the question. And then after you draw both line of force, you must complete the triangle. Alright, measure the third side of line of force to determine the resultant force using the scale. Alright, so after you have two line of force, you need to draw the third line of force over here, right, the red one. And then how you determine the resultant force, you need to measure by using ruler. Okay, according to my ruler, I got the length is 10.6 centimeter. So 10.6 centimeter multiplied by the scale, which is 10 Newton. So I got the force over here is 106 Newton. Okay, so this one, I repeat, the third line must be measured by ruler, and then I got 10.6 centimeter. And then how I need to convert, or how I need to find the resultant force, because this value is in centimeter. If we want to find the resultant force, we need to convert into Newton. So 10.6 centimeter times or multiply 10 Newton, because we following the scale that we choose at the first step. Alright, so the force that are exerted in resultant force is 106 Newton. Alright, and then we can measure the new angle over here by using protractor. So I get 65 degree. So the direction is 65 degree from 80 Newton. Alright, this one is situation 4. So the other method to find resultant force is you need to draw by using compasses. By using compasses, you can draw a triangle of force that are not perpendicular to each other. So you can see in the textbook how to use the compasses to do the next method. Alright.